the adoption of agenda additions or deletions.
Mr. Vice Chair, at this time, I'd like for the removal of item G9. That's the authorization to advertise for a public hearing conditional use permit 2019-0403 for Courtney and Kieran Dickinson for a short-term tourist rental. They have decided to postpone their CUP application this time.
Mr. Chair, I move that we adopt the agenda with the change, with the deletion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The ayes have it. All right, the agenda public comment period is next. It's an opportunity for citizens to give input on issues on the board's agenda which are not the subject of a public hearing and is not intended as a question and answer period. This period has a 20-minute limit, and such time will be split equally among the number of individuals who have signed up. For individuals who wish to give input on relevant county issues which are not on the board's agenda, there's a 60-minute general public comment period at the end of each meeting. Ms. Mouse, has anyone signed up?
Yes, Mr. Vice Chairman. Kelly Sprague.
Please come to the podium and give your name and address, please.
My name is Kelly Sprague. I live at 52 Hazardford Road in Bentonville. First of all, thank you for your time. I've prepared my remarks so I don't get lost in them. It has been several weeks since the emergence of a series of scandals with EDA, and I realize investigations are taking place and there will likely be more lawsuits and criminal charges before the dust settles. There certainly are a lot of unasked and unanswered questions in terms of responsibility. Who knew what and when did they know it? I do have some confidence that eventually most wrongs will be righted and that justice will be served. Eventually. However, I would like to know what this board is currently doing to correct and protect the people that they serve from further harm being done. What is this board of supervisors doing to restore confidence? The following questions need to be answered to the public's satisfaction. What happens when and if all that money that was stolen isn't recovered? I mean, who gets left holding the bag? Because the cool million in legal and audit expenses alone, not to mention the stolen monies, should not be borne by the taxpayers. Who's paying for current EDA operating expenses? It's my understanding that the EDA coffers are all but bare. Is there any review process for EDA contracts or proposals to ensure that we don't go through this again? A robust risk management program and policy that includes detailed analysis and mitigation processes should be applied to all current and future projects. Is there a process in place to review the economic impact to the county should any current projects or proposals collapse? The people of this county should not have to shoulder the burden with additional tax increases when the expected revenue from poorly planned and poorly reviewed projects fizzle and collapse and the money is pretty much already spent. It would seem to me there's a dire need for the public to have an EDA board that we can have confidence in. It's my understanding that some EDA board members that oversaw the debacle are still sitting on the board. Aren't these the same people that failed to do their jobs by not providing proper oversight? How are we to believe that they've suddenly become capable after years of rubber-stamping sweetheart deals? It's time to clean house. I'm also given to understand that there are 2 vacancies in the EDA board. How long will this take the Board of Supervisors to fill the 2 current vacancies? I'm told that there are candidates being vetted and interviewed, but what are the requisite qualifications? Is the process transparent to the public on any level? Please find honest, competent people to serve on the board. Fix the EDA board and fix it now. It is my understanding that the EDA has voted to request that the county serve as its fiscal agent. Great. But there exists a lack of confidence in this Board of Supervisors, the county administrator, and the county's attorney as well. You as individuals may think that you are not the EDA, the public is complacent with your performance, but the seeming lack of scrutiny with respect to EDA proposals and the potential for personal gain gives us great cause for concern. The requirement for independent oversight financially as well as measures for preventing potential conflicts of interest for this board's members, the county administrator, and the county attorney is appropriate and necessary. Transparency. I'm dismayed that the agenda for the closed-door session tonight is the EDA. I can imagine there's a rare time when you need to discuss amongst yourselves. But how often does that really need to happen? How many times were things that should have been discussed in the light discussed behind closed-door meetings? Some of us think that government's doing the people's business should be in the open. Stop closing the doors or have very firm grounds for doing so, and rarely. This series of scandals has rocked this community, and people are literally coming out of the woodwork to run for office. I know some of you personally, and I know you're good people, and you do this job because you care. But if you do not act now to fix these problems, some of you will not be serving on the Board of Supervisors come November. The people who elected you need to be able to trust you. We need to trust that you will be proactive in preventing the fraud, abuse of power, and waste of our tax money that has occurred. Put in place better checks and balances. Be more transparent in what you're doing. This Board of Supervisors has to act now and not wait to fix this. It's clear to everybody paying attention that the lack of oversight by the county created an opportunity for those parties that embezzled, abused their power, and perpetrated fraud at the expense of the residents of this county. We deserve a better set of checks and balances. We deserve transparency. We deserve a process now, and not after the dust settles, perhaps years out, that gives us confidence in the ADA board, the managers, administrators, directors of our county, and this Board of Supervisors that you're above reproach and are carrying out the interests of the county's citizens. Please don't think that this issue is going away. People are angry and feeling betrayed, and they want answers. Mrs. Gavis, I live in your district, and I would expect that you'll be hearing from me because I want to follow up on some of this. I'm a very busy person. I'm in my restaurant 7 days a week, but I'm paying better attention now. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Ms. Mouse, anybody else?
No one else has signed up.
Does anybody else want to speak? Did you want to speak, sir?
I signed up, but it's for not an agenda, on anything on the agenda.
Okay.
He signed up for the general public comment
Okay.
period.
You'll come at the end and speak, all right. All right, so we're at the reports of board members, county administrator, and county attorney. Mr. Carter?
I have nothing.
Ms. Fox?
This afternoon, I attended our community policy management team meeting, and we were happy to have our assistant county attorney with us. She will be working with social services, and in the long run, this is going to save us some money because the contract attorney will be retiring soon, and she'll be working with him and learning the inside track for the children's services, and we're very happy to have her on board. And I just want to wish Mr. Murray quick recovery and miss him. Thank you.
Thank you. I also would like to wish Mr. Murray a quick recovery, and just the only thing I really like to say is I'd like to thank those who have the courage to come and speak out. The lady who just came, because I've heard from many of the people who said that they have come that it causes them some stress, come up and speak and get involved, and I know that that does and it can. Just try to develop a little bit of thick skin just like we do. And I really think that people are coming out to speak. I think that's important. That helps hold us accountable and hold other people accountable. So I really hope that the community does keep coming and participating in this process. Mr. Fox.
I'd just like to report I attended the library board meeting as a new member, I suppose. And also, I'd like to wish Mr. Murray a quick recovery also. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
County Administrator Doug Stanley.
Vice Chair, members of the board, a few items to report on. One, the Development Review Committee met on April 24th. Committee discussed projects in the county, including the conditional use permit for the proposed fire and rescue training facility on ESA Lane, conditional use permits for 5 short-term tourist rentals located throughout the county, some of which are on the agenda tonight. Proposed Crooked Run West development. VDOT is currently reviewing the traffic impact analysis, and staff is waiting for their comments. Committee also discussed projects in town, including the potential daycare on South Commerce. It was tabled by the Town Planning Commission for further information. A nice vendor business on South Royal Avenue. Potential dog training facility on 11th Street and a proposed CrossFit gym on Jackson Street has been approved for interior demolition of the existing space. Committee will meet again tomorrow, May 22nd, 10 a.m. At its annual reception last week, the Northern Shenandoah Valley Regional Commission recognized current commission board member, Warren County appointee, and former Supervisor John Dance, celebrating the value of his committed public service over the years. Mr. Vance was elected to the board and served 6 years from January 2000 to December 31, 2005. Rivermont Fire Station county staff has received clearance from FAA, and we're working with the contractor to finalize the contract, and hopefully we'll have them starting the project here in the next few weeks. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Stanley? Hearing none, County Attorney Dan Whitten.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Just an update on the county and EDA business. The EDA will be meeting this Friday at 8 a.m. This will be the first meeting for the new director and the new administrative assistant. Also, I did reach out to the Virginia State Bar to confirm that it's not a conflict for me to represent both the county and the EDA. It's actually fairly standard practice across the state of Virginia. And as long as the county and EDA are working towards the same end, which we are, then it's not a conflict. And if there is a situation where I deem it a conflict, then I would conflict myself out like I did in the workforce housing project. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Okay, hearing none. Additional appropriations and transfers.
Mr. Chairman, I just have one, if you will. It's item 41010-7001, Public Works Sanitary District Machinery Equipment, $86,000. Would that be for a motor grader and about a tank?
Actually, and Mr. Childress, I might ask him to come up. I believe it's for equipment that was purchased by the Public Works Department this past year, including a mini excavator and some additional equipment.
That's correct. That's correct. And it's primarily used for the mini excavators that we purchased for the Public Works Department.
Could you come to that way everybody can hear you? Thank you, Mr. Childress.
Yes, sir, Mr. Fox. That money was primarily for the purchase of the new excavator for the Public Works Department and some other ancillary equipment. We had purchased some implements for a tractor and I believe a Boomax type mower attachment for the mini excavator as well. We're using that piece of equipment primarily in the sanitary districts that we manage, and the hours that we spend in those sanitary districts are charged back to them to recoup those hours.
But that money would come from the sanitary district at some point.
Yeah, we're recouping those hours, yes, sir.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Hearing nothing else, we have a motion.
I move that we accept the additional appropriation transfers with the understandings as presented.
Second?
A vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Approval of accounts.
Mr. Chairman, I move to accept the approval of the accounts as presented.
Second?
All right, got any discussion? Actually, I had just a question. Mr. Stanley, I noticed going through all this, where it says BB&T, I understand that's credit cards. I just noticed the telephone bills, when I go through, there's some hefty bills going through here. Is it possible that can be looked at and see if there's a better avenue that we could do?
We actually hired an outside consultant a couple of years ago, and Andre's in the back, with a company called Spyglass. They go in and look and see, are there any accounts that we can close out? We ended up closing out a few of those accounts, I believe, at the time. A lot of the cost you'll see is with particularly the 911 system. You've got some $4,000 bills over there. That's having to do with the 911 system. We really don't have any control over that. The rest of them, a lot of them are the standard phones and for the departments. But sheriff's office, obviously, 17,400 the bulk of his charges, plus the 911 at 9,500.
Anybody else have any questions? We have, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Down to the consent agenda. Does anybody want to pull anything off of the consent agenda?
That's pull number one.
Anyone? Okay. Any other, nothing else? Okay. Other than, well, did we do number one first?
I move that we approve the consent agenda with the exception of one.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Consent agenda number one, G1, Mr. Carter.
No, it just says you would request to take off the library board because of commitment at War Memorial Hospital. I'm just kind of curious what that commitment was.
I'm attending a healthy lifestyle program, and it's every Monday from 6 to 7. It's actually been very helpful.
How long did that go on?
It goes for 1 year.
Okay. I was just curious. I mean, the reason I pulled this was not necessarily that, other than it was my own curiosity, but I was just thinking perhaps you and Mr. Fox could switch, and you could take over the airport for the next coming years. They only vote they only meet on a quarterly basis.
I had mentioned that to him, and
Okay.
he had said he didn't want me to.
It would be in the best interest of the county, I would do that.
Well,
I don't
I'm just
mind.
thinking, I mean, there again, because we don't want to put too much burden on any particular
Right.
member, but if you-
I'm fine with going on the airport committee. Mr. Fox has said he thought I had enough on my plate, but
okay. Because like I said, both of them are quarterly meetings, so I think the airport meets
Yeah.
every quarter, I believe it is. So that was one of my suggestions. That's why I asked him to pull it off. So
And I don't mind doing them both, but if it would be better suited for anyone concerned, I'd be glad to relinquish.
well, I think too. 'Cause, well, I just think that I think I've been fortunate enough to avoid the airport in my tenure on here. So I just like to see the spread the love.
yeah, I don't mind going on the
Okay.
airport committee. When I was younger, I had a learner's flyers license. I've flown cross country before, so I've been around airports a little bit.
Well, you could be a good asset there. Okay. So if I may, I move the Board of Supervisors amend the adopted 2019 Board Committee assignments to reflect Supervisor Fox being the Board of Supervisor representative on the Stanley Public Library, and that Mr. Sayre takes over the duties on the Airport Advisory Board.
Okay, and one discussion I would like, I want to say it was an honor to serve on the Samuel
Do you
Public.
need a second first?
Oh, second.
Second?
Sorry about that. It was an honor to serve on the library board, and they have some very good people on that board, very active. They have a good fundraiser once a year, and I think it's a huge asset to our community. And Mr. Fox had served on that prior to when I came on the board here, and they love him there, and I'm sure that Mr. Fox will do a great job. Okay. Any, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. We are at 7:20 now. Did we vote for the consent agenda already? We did. So we're at the part for public hearings, and we're a little early. I guess we're going to take a recess for about 8 minutes.
Could I ask a question?
Sure, go ahead.
And I don't know, and this may be for the attorney. Can we go to a closed session? I know you're going to suddenly give a whole lot of time, but I'm not sure how much some of these items may take. Can we always go in, come out, and go back in? Or we just take a 8-minute recess, whatever is pleasure of the board.
And if you want to go into closed session, and you believe you can accomplish one or two of the items, that's fine.
I think that'd be a good idea.
Would that be amenable?
Fine with me. go in closed
I
session.
move the board enter into a closed session under the provisions of section 2.2-3711A1 of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act for discussion of the assignment, appointment, promotion, performance, demotion, salaries, disciplining, or resignation of specific public officers, appointees, or employees of any public body. I further move discussion be limited to the Front Royal Golf Club Advisory Committee, the Front Royal Warren County Economic Development Authority, Board of Directors, and the Warren County Planning Director.
Second.
All those in favor?
I think we need a roll call.
Roll call. Ms. Mouse?
Mr. Carter?
Yes.
Ms. Gladys?
Aye.
Mr. Vice Chairman?
Aye.
Mr. Fox?
Aye.
All right, we're in closed meeting. We are back in session. At this point, we'll have, it is 7:40 p.m. and we're at section H, public hearings.
We need a motion to come out of closed session.
Okay. Any motion come out of closed session?
Mr. Vice Chair, I move that the board certifies to the best of each member's knowledge only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements under section 2.2-3711A1 of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion by which the closed meeting was convened or heard, discussed, or considered in the meeting by the public body.
We have a second.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Mr. Fox?
Aye.
Mr. Vice Chairman?
Aye.
Ms. Gladys?
Aye.
Mr. Carter?
Aye.
Any motions we'll do at the end of the meeting? Okay. So we're at the public hearing section. Number 1, Virginia Department of Transportation Secondary 6-Year Plan for fiscal year 2020-2025, construction budget for fiscal year 2020. Doug Stanley and Mr. Ed Carter.
Mr. Vice Chair, the board discussed the proposed secondary 6-year plan construction budget work session on May 7, 2019. As discussed, Mr. Carter was able to allocate additional funding on the Caldwell Mill unpaved project in order to advance construction start date. Mr. Carter will give a short presentation, which will be followed by our public hearing on the proposed secondary system budget.
Mr. Chairman, board members, good afternoon, or evening, I should say. This is the current proposed secondary system improvement plan for 1920 through 24-25. This is the major projects that are currently ongoing in Warren County. Now, obviously, the Morgan Fork Bridge is complete. However, as you know, we've had some difficulties with the south approach. And so it has not been closed out, and that's why it's still showing on your proposed construction budget, even though the dollars have been spent. And we have just received the last hurried up clearance for environmental. So the advertisement for the fixing of that south approach should go out within the next couple of weeks. The Happy Creek Road was a smart scale project, $10.4 million, and that is scheduled for, tentative schedule for add date in 2021. This, the secondary system Warren County construction program estimated allocations. Now, pay some attention to estimated because the budget for the 6 years is predicated on forecasted revenues to the state. Okay, as you know, economic conditions dictate whether that goes up or down. Right now, this is the best estimate we have. The CTV formula, okay, this 153,375, this is the last year that CTV formula appears. A legislative change and formula, secondary formula was done away with, and it has now become district grant monies. And each district is given so much funds based on the the revenue projection, and that is where the secondary work comes from. The telefeed funds, okay, these are funds that are every year estimated based on your network usage and so forth, taxes on telecommunications, so forth, comes in to the state and then it's redistributed to the county. The new hard surface projects being done with secondary funds, and this is what we discussed with the board's priorities in the work session. We have Rocky Lane, which is currently under construction. We have Ashby Station Road, which is currently under construction. And then the next in line is Richardson Road and then Bucks Mill Road. They're all scheduled to be done this summer. Then we go to Downey Farm Road. Now our scheduling for these rural rustics is largely dependent on weather. We have another summer like we did last year. Obviously we aren't going to meet these dates, but we would like to also get started on Downey Farm, although we probably by the time we get the others done, will not get all of the surface treatment down. And certain time of the year we get to the fall, we have to worry about leaves falling and so forth, so that surface treatment needs to go down either before or next year when we're not faced with that. Panhandle Road will also be fully funded in 2020. Rocky Lane will be fully funded in 2021.
And just clarification, you meant Rocky Hollow on that one? You said Rocky.
I'm sorry, Rocky Hollow Lane. Okay, will be fully funded in 2021. Coffin Mill Road, okay, will be fully funded in 2021. This is the one where the board asked us to move the countywide funds up to get that taken care of. Oregon Hollow Road, you see that as 2019. We're going to start on Oregon Hollow Road. That money is a different, I'm sorry, I didn't. The Oregon Hollow comes from high volume secondary unpaved roads, which is a different fund than the district grant. Okay, that's going to be started here very shortly. 2022, Kendrick Ford Road, Panhandle Road, the second section, 2023, William Vincent Road, 2024. I'm not used to this. And that's the last one that we currently have scheduled. These new hard surface projects are rural addition projects, okay, that the county is working with and administering. Old Oak Lane, Section 4, Lakefront Drive, which is complete with some minor dress-up issues. The money's been spent. It hasn't been closed out. That's what's still showing on there. And then Tomahawk Way, Phase 2. These are projects that the county found that wanted as a priority, however, they're not currently funded. One is Houseville Road from Morgan Ford Road out to 603. Cotton Lane from Route 55 to 615. And then Stokes Airport Road from 619 to 626. And those are fairly expensive, estimated to be expensive reconstruction and widening projects. This is our planning estimates at the current time. The rural rustic is $305 a mile. Okay, depending on the logistics and the uniqueness of each individual project, that can be a little over or a little under, but that's the average. This 2-lane reconstruction with the economy and the inflation factor, by the time the money comes in, this could well be over $1 million. The 2-lane road new construction could be $3 million. And the 4-lane reconstruction, the 2-lane new location, and then the 4-lane reconstruction, okay, is probably going to be close to $3 million. And the 4-lane new location is probably going to be over $5 million. Does the board have any questions on what's being proposed?
I think we went over this in detail on our last work session.
Yes, sir.
Anybody have any further questions, Bill? Thank you, Mr. Carter.
Yes, sir, you're welcome.
All right, public hearing number 2. We need to vote on that? Okay.
Well, we need
You have a
a
public
review.
hearing on this
Oh,
item.
that's right. That's right, sorry. It's my first time ever doing this, so. And I wasn't aware I was going to be doing this about 10 minutes prior to the meeting. All right, so do we have anybody who'd like to come and
Did you want to open the public
open
hearing?
public hearing? All right, public hearing is now open. Ms. Mouse, anybody signed up?
Mr. Stephen Colors.
Good evening, my name's Steve Cullors, 1605 Rocky Hollow Road. First of all, this might be a little off from the public hearing, but thank you all for speaking, and I wish best for Mr. Murray. I hope he gets along well. I didn't realize he was sick, but I wish him the best. I'll go back to Rocky Hollow Road. That's a 6-year plan. It's been on over 30 years on a 6-year plan. Started off wanting to be rebuilt completely. 04, they moved in, started construction, tore down a building that was in the way, also tore a building down on over at Browntown on Gooney Loop. Things got tight and they shut down and it got taken off the list, and with along with a lot of other roads. So with that being, myself and a couple other landowners, it's not a whole Mr. Guy, and we're the main landowners along this route. We gave the right of way 40 feet. It's already been given. So it got shut down. So this road is, it's agriculture. One landowner's conservation easement is not going to be built on. It's ideal candidate for a real rustic road. Not real heavy traffic during the week, but weekend is unbearable with dust. There's 2 campgrounds, one at each end. One down at Hazard Ford Road. Y'all have a boat landing down there. Public can put in. It's a campground above there. They come in and they park at the bridge, shuffle back and forth across the road. The campground rents canoes. They use the road. 2 other canoe companies use the roads out of Fort Wall, and then downriver uses a lot. They're right there in Bentonville. I know of no other road in the county that brings in the funds to Warren County as this road does. It's unreal the amount of funds that these people go out and buy, local stores, spend money in Fort Wall. But it's a lot of dust involved in that road with that much traffic. Don't believe me, come up, especially if it don't rain this weekend, and make a travel up and you'll see, you'll be covered. We're the canoe capital of Virginia. Somebody gets out of the river, even down where Mr. Gibson's at, the car comes down through that bottom, wind comes out of the west. These people look like they've been tarred and feathered with dust. It's just not friendly to these people. Will not come back once they get in this environment. It's harmful to the businesses, but it is up on the list. I think next year to be sometime year after next to be started. I ask y'all keep it on the list and do take in consideration the amount of money that this road brings in. I don't know of any other one that's bringing anybody any money in except this one. It's very important because once we run these people off, they're not going to come back. So I appreciate the time to speak. Again, wish Mr. Murray the best. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Mouse?
John Gibson.
My name's John Gibson, 821 Fort Stover Road, Luray. Hooray for Luray. I own and operate a downriver canoe company at the Indian Hollow Bridge in Bentonville. And we get a lot of dust from the Rocky Hollow Road, the prevailing winds out of the west. So with the constant traffic up and down that road, especially on the weekend, and we're part of that too. It kicks up a lot of dust, and all that dust comes over, and at the end of the day on the weekend, everything, we just have a layer of dust on everything over there. And driving our customers from our canoe company up to Hazard Ford Road, up to the Hazard Mill Put-In, which we do a number of times on the weekend. Then our vehicles get covered with dust, and our canoes and kayaks get covered with dust going up there. And by the time we get there, then it just is, it would be better not to have all this dust. So I would like to speak in favor of having that road surface treated to eliminate the dust problem and to help the traffic problems as well on that. Vehicles getting by each other, etc. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Miles?
Jim Guy.
Jim Guy, 281 Lazy River Lane, center of the universe, Bentonville. I was sitting there thinking about it, and I guess I've been up here about the last 15, 18 years on and off asking that this thing be done. They've covered all the reasons that we need to get the road finished. Excuse me. And my old spiel was started with Merle Colors. He was hoping it would get done before he died. Didn't do it. My mother, hoping before she died, didn't do it. Now my sister's in her 80s. She's kind of hoping. About 3 more years I'll be there, so maybe I'll start asking for myself. But at least I hope you will keep it and do everything you can to leave it on the books to get done as soon as possible. Thank you.
Ms. Miles?
No one else has signed up.
Would anyone else like to speak? Anyone else like to speak? All right, this hearing is closed. Does anybody have pleasure of a motion?
I move the Board of Supervisors approve the proposed secondary 6-year plan for fiscal year 2020 through 2025 and construction budget for fiscal year 2020 as proposed.
Second.
Ms. Mouse, can we have a roll call vote?
Any discussion?
All discussion.
No, we hear you. And I know, I'm not sure if you came before me, before I got on here, or after, or whatever, but no, it is something you see. That a lot of those 6-year plans turn out to be 20 or 30 years, and it all comes down to money. And I think as Mr. Carter said, the state has plenty of money, but it's been cut back and they reallocate. It just depends on different administrations and what the General Assembly wants to do. But if I read this correctly, it looks like 2021 for Rocky Hollow, I think.
Well, the final amount of money needed for us to start would actually be approved if it stays like it is in July 1st of 2020.
2020, okay.
Yeah.
That sounds even better.
Yeah, it does. The year before you know it.
Yes.
It only took 30 years. But no, I mean, I think I can speak for the board too. I don't foresee any change in switching up the plans. Like I said, we have a lot of needs and not much money. So I'm all in favor of proceeding as it is.
I certainly am. We do, thank you.
And I will say too that I was enlightened tonight because I just realized that Lazy River Lane is the center of the universe. I've been there at least.
I knew that already.
Very well, thank you.
And I apologize about trying to move the meeting along, because I know the roads are some of the most important things to citizens, and we're trying to do all we can to get the roads paved, as many as we can, as quick as we can, and get it done correctly so it looks good. So, is it appropriate time for a motion now?
Motion's there, it's time to vote.
Okay.
Do we need a roll call? That would be a bad idea. Give Emily something to do.
Mr. Carter?
Aye.
Ms. Gladys?
Aye.
Mr. Vice Chairman?
Aye.
Mr. Fox?
All right, motion passes. All right, second public hearing, approval for readoption of Virginia motor vehicle traffic laws incorporated into the Warren County Code as Chapter 172, Section 172-1. Time goes off. Dan Whitten.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Each year, the county readopts Virginia's motor vehicle laws in order to incorporate into the county code any changes in the traffic laws of the state. This permits the sheriff's office deputies to write traffic violations on county summons, and the fines are assessed for them to be paid to the county rather than to the state. The public hearing has been properly advertised. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Whitten? All right. Open up for a public hearing. All right, we have a public hearing on the Virginia Department of approval for readoption of Virginia motor vehicle traffic laws. Would anybody, Ms. Mouse, anybody sign up to speak?
No, sir.
Would anybody like to speak? Would anybody like to speak? All right, so this meeting is, the public hearing is closed. I'd like to have discussion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the Board of Supervisors approve the proposed readoption of the Warren County Code, Chapter 172, Section 172-1, adoption of state law to re-adopt and incorporate by reference into the county code the motor vehicle traffic laws of the Commonwealth of Virginia.
Second?
Okay, now for discussion.
No, I just, having Mr. Whitten covered that, this is pretty much a annual housekeeping item, and it allows our deputies to write tickets or summons through the state code, and any fines to be had to come back to the county.
Okay, with that said, Ms. Mouse, can we have a roll call vote again?
Mr. Fox?
Aye.
Excuse me. Mr. Vice Chairman?
Aye.
Ms. Gladys?
Aye.
Mr. Carter?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Third public hearing, ordinance to amend and re-ordain section 82-4 of the Warren County Code. Dr. Stanley?
Mr. Vice Chair, members of the board, at its inaugural meeting on March 25 of 2019, the Osprey Lane Sanitary District Advisory Committee requested the Board of Supervisors consider implementation of new construction road impact fee to the Osprey Lane Sanitary District. As part of the justification, the committee members mentioned previous construction damage to the road and associated drainage structures. Chapter 82 of the Warren County Code allows sanitary districts to collect a fee for the extraordinary use of streets and roads within the district from the owners of lots upon which new construction is commencing. The fee is collected by the treasurer, applied to issuance of any building permit for a new home construction by the county. There is a revised sheet. We had 2017, the board had adjusted some of the rates. The three that were different than on your cover sheet. Blue Mountain is currently $2,500. Shenandoah Farms is currently $3,500, and I believe Shenandoah Shores is currently $2,000. But tonight, this public hearing would add them to the list to allow us to later adopt a fee. So, public hearing has been properly advertised.
All right, does anybody have any questions for Mr. Stanley? All right, I'll open this for the public hearing. All right. All right, the public hearing is open. Ms. Mouse, did anybody sign up?
No, sir.
All right, would anybody like to speak? Would anybody like to speak? All right, hearing none. The public hearing is closed. We have a motion.
Mr. Vice Chair, I move that the Board of Supervisors amend Section 82-4 of the Warren County Code to add the Osprey Lane to the list of sanitary districts authorized to collect user fees for new construction.
Second.
All right, discussion?
Just, there again, I think Mr. Stanley covered it, but this is for new construction. Now remember, I think it was prior to Mr. Sayre's term on here, they had a lot of new construction in Shenandoah Farms. And they go through and they would, they get the roads graded, whatever. And then if we had heavy rains or something like that, they did damage to the roads. So these fees are mainly to offset and, take care of any damage may be done there. So it's not meant to be punitive or anything, but it's just mainly to help offset any costs the new construction may do to those roads.
And typically, don't we usually get a recommendation from the sanitary district? Is that not correct?
That's correct.
And Mr. Childers, you could just nod to me, but you and I and Mr. Ralph Rinaldi, we went around and drove. Is that part of this, the help to, for this new construction?
Yes, in the Osprey Lane Sanitary District. You and I and Mr. Rinaldi were in Shenandoah Farms, but same program.
Concept?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, does anybody have any other discussion? All right, with that said, all those in favor, do we need to do a roll call, or can we just? All those in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Number 4, temporary placement of no-wake buoys for the Humane Society of Warren County's Waggin for Dragons fundraising event on the Shenandoah River. Mr. Stanley?
Mr. Vice Chair, members of the board, Megan Bowers, the Executive Director of the Humane Society of Warren County, has requested the board's approval to place 2 no-wake buoys in the Shenandoah River at the boat landing located at the Front Royal Golf Course at 902 Country Club Drive, where its Waggin for Dragons fundraiser is currently scheduled for August 3rd of 2019. The board approved this request for the Humane Society's event for the past, I say 2 years, but actually last year they canceled out, but we had approved it. Captain K.C. Clark, Law Enforcement Manager of Region 4 for the Department of Game and Inland Fisheries, instructed the Humane Society to apply to the board for a public hearing on this matter. This is, I guess, a formality that we have to go through in order to allow this to happen. I think the public hearing's been advertised. I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions from Mr. Stanley? All right, hearing none, we'll open up a public hearing. And Ms. Mouse, anybody scheduled to speak? Simon?
No, sir.
All right, anybody would like to speak? Anybody like to speak? Nobody wants to come out and speak for Wagons for Dragons? Okay. All right, this public hearing is closed. We have a motion.
I move the Board of Supervisors approve the temporary placement of 2 no-wake buoys on the Shenandoah River for the Humane Society of Warren County's Waggin for Dragons fundraising event on August 3rd, 2019.
Second.
All right, discussion.
Just, I think this is the biggest fundraiser that they have, and they've been an important part of the community, and they, I think the county works with them as far as when animal control gets unlicensed pets or things of that nature. So, I'd encourage everybody to come out and support that on August 3rd. I myself have not been. I think my wife participated one time. I think Mr. Stanley has participated, and they raise a team, fund for a team, and then also you have all the folks come down and watch them and everything. So hopefully they have good weather, and it'll be another good event for them.
And does anybody else have any discussion? The fellow that Mr. Carter said that when I first came on the board here, there was, looking at the budget and this and that from the Humane Society, and Mr. Stanley, if you can please kind of chime in here, that there is different counties, different states do it different ways, and we do help fund the Humane Society, but they do have some things that are self-supporting. This is one of their fundraisers. So as Mr. Carter was saying, I think it's a great idea for the community to get out and support them. That just helps us keep our budget lower so that we don't have to funded as much. Is anything you'd like to add to that, Mr. Stanley?
No, obviously, they have there's a trust that helps support the Humane Society and some of their efforts in addition to the contract services that we have, and they do a pretty good job of fundraising in the community and helps them offset those costs.
Does anybody else have any discussion? All right, all those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? The ayes have it. And number 5, Z 2019-0201, ordinance to amend chapter 180-63H and add 180-63I of the Warren County Code zoning ordinance. Mr. Joe Petty.
Good evening, Mr. Vice Chairman. Yeah, the proposed amendment is regarding the process for termination of conditions and permitted uses for conditional use permits. This section of the zoning ordinance was added in 2003 and was amended in 2009. Since then, there's been a little bit of confusion about that process for the termination of the permits. So staff has drafted the proposed amendment and with recommendations. It has been properly advertised. If you do have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
I'm sure that anybody have any questions? I do. Let's see here. Amend chapter. What exactly? We're amending our zoning ordinance?
Yes, sir. So we'll be amending section H and then adding I. I was actually number 1 in the old section. We just have pulled that out since that doesn't relate so much to termination. It just adds an extension on if they've been unable to establish that use. And then we've actually lowered the days from 60 to 30 days of notice, which is in line with our zoning violations. We look close to a zoning violation. So if they're in violation of the conditions, we give them 30 days in which they can respond of why we should not terminate that CUP.
Okay, does anybody else have any questions? All right. We're open for a public hearing. Ms. Mouse, anybody sign up to speak?
No, sir.
All right. Anybody would like to come and speak? Anybody like to come up and speak? All right, hearing none. We close this public hearing. Can we have a motion?
Mr. Vice Chair, finding that the proposed zoning ordinance amendment is appropriate for the public necessity, convenience, and general welfare and good zoning practice, I move that the Board of Supervisors approve the proposed amendment.
Second.
Okay, any discussion?
I think it's a mechanism that we needed in place. There was no mechanism for this previously, so thank you, Mr. Petty.
This gives you another tool to enforce the
Yes, sir. Yeah, it's just, like I said, clarifies it up a little bit more than it was in there before.
All right, we ready for the roll call? Okay. Ms. Mouse, can we have a roll call?
Mr. Carter?
Yes, Ms. Mouse.
Ms. Gladys?
Aye.
Mr. Vice Chairman?
Aye.
Mr. Fox?
Aye.
Okay, the ayes have it. All right, number 6, conditional use permit 3/2/2019. Barbara Garide for short-term tourist rental. Matt Weldon.
Good evening, Mr. Vice Chairman, members of the board. This property is located at 259 Lou Chase Road. It's identified on tax map 23A, section 410 as parcels 11 and 12. Property is zoned residential 1 and it is 1.67 acres. The applicants actually live next door in 233 Lou Chase Road, and they formerly utilized this structure, this dwelling, prior to the 2012 amendment for a short-term tourist rental, and they used it as a short-term tourist rental. They did pay their transient lodging taxes under their LLC Bow Ridge Cabin Rentals, and then they ceased that prior to the 2012 when we added the short-term tourist rentals, and they started renting it long terms while some Dominion workers were here, so they rented that at that time. They would like to reestablish the short-term tourist rental. Property is located in Skyland Estate subdivision. We've got letters of support. There's no problem with the Property Owners Association with this use. The property does not meet the setback of 100 feet from adjacent dwelling. It's currently located 40 feet from the dwelling in which the applicant resides. But it is also located in excess of 150 feet from all other neighboring dwellings. This is a supplemental regulation that would need to be waived by the Board of Supervisors. The applicant is here this evening. I'd be happy to answer any questions. This public hearing has been properly advertised and adjacent property owners have been notified.
All right. Does anybody have any questions? Would the applicant like to speak? No? Okay. Ms. Mount, I'm gonna go ahead and call for a public hearing. All right, public meeting is now, public hearing is now open. Is anybody sign up to speak?
No, sir.
All right, no one sign up to speak. Would anyone like to come and speak? Would anyone like to come and speak? Public hearing is now closed. We have a motion.
Mr. Vice Chair, I move that the Board of Supervisors approve the conditional use permit request of Barbara DeRod for short-term tourist rental with the conditions as recommended by the Planning Commission and staff. Do we need another addition to that? You said.
Actually, number 8 was the applicant shall have the accessory structure currently located in front yard setback removed or moved from the side or rear of the dwelling at a location that meets the side setback of 10 feet from the property line. All other conditions, other than the waiver requirement number 7, are standard conditions that we use for short-term tourist rentals. I'd be happy to read those. I did not read those.
So this would include the waiver?
That would include the waiver to the property owner's primary dwelling. Okay, all right. So I'll just go over the conditions again. My apologies. Number 1, the applicant shall comply with Warren County Health Department, Warren County Building Inspections, Virginia Statewide Fire Prevention Code regulations and requirements. Number 2, the maximum number of occupants shall not exceed 2 as determined according to the Health Department. Conditional permit for 1-bedroom dwelling. Number 3, the applicant shall have the well water tested annually and a copy of the results shall be submitted to the Planning and Health Departments. Number 4, the applicant shall have the septic system inspected annually by a state licensed inspector and a copy of the results and their report shall be submitted to the Planning and Health Departments. The system shall also be serviced every 3 to 5 years as recommended by the Health Department. Number 5, the property shall be in compliance with Section 18056.4 of the Warren County Zoning Ordinance regarding supplemental regulations for short-term tourist rentals, which include a property management plan to be submitted to the Planning Department prior to staff issuing a certificate of zoning for this use. The applicant has done that. Number 6, the applicant shall register with the Commissioner of Revenue's office for transient lodging tax purposes. Number 7, a waiver to the required setback of 100 feet to the adjacent property dwelling shall be granted for the existing 40-foot setback to the DeRod's primary residence southwest of the subject property. And number 8, the applicant shall have the accessory structure currently located in a front yard setback removed or moved to the side or rear of the dwelling at a location that meets the side setback of 10 feet from the property line. The applicants have actually demolished that building and it's getting ready to be removed. So, thank you.
I have a motion for second.
Is that your motion?
I made the motion already.
Okay.
Yes, you just hadn't read all of it. Thank you.
We need a second.
I'll give a second.
All right, any discussion? All right, hearing none. You want a roll call vote? Ms. Mouse, a roll call vote?
Mr. Fox?
Aye.
Mr. Vice Chairman?
Aye.
Ms. Gladys?
Aye.
Mr. Carter?
Yes, Ms. Mills.
The ayes have it. All right, I think we're down to the public general public presentations comment period. And this is the period for, I think, was it Ms. Mouse, anybody sign up for that?
Yes,
Okay.
James Harper.
Okay, James Harper.
My name is James Harper, and my address is 3658 Rockland Road. Mr. Vice Chairman, Supervisors, I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you tonight. It's an honor to be a member of Warren County governing body, and that comes with a fiduciary responsibility to every man, woman, and child in Warren County, as well as oversight of the county administrator, Doug Stanley. In my opinion, each member has let the county down. In the next few minutes, I will list a few reasons of why I feel you've been negligent. I was born in Warren Memorial Hospital, and I'm proud of saying I live in Front Royal. Your goal should be making Front Royal the best small town in America, not sleeping on the job. Do you really think young women want their children delivered in Winchester? A young pregnant woman in labor from Bentonville will have to drive to Winchester to have her baby delivered. You did not even try. You rolled over without a fight. Several years ago, I applied for a position with the EDA as I felt something was wrong on that board. Our administrator, Doug Stanley, said he wanted Ron Llewellyn as he had experience. James Harper, 0 bankruptcies. Mr. Llewellyn, multiple, and he doesn't pay his taxes on time. Yet Mr. Stanley chose him, and look where we are now. My experience working with national decision systems, building site models, understanding demographic and geodemographic data, working with Mobil Oil, Valvoline Oil, BB&T, Sun Oil, Hardee's, Golden Corral, Lynn's Crafters, Wendy's, the headquarters of the Presbyterian Church, and Catherine's, to name a few, certainly qualified, and I was willing to say I would not enrich myself. The only reason Mr. Llewellyn wanted to be on the EDA was to get them to build Leach's Run Parkway so that his Swan property would have major road access. Do we really need more traffic on Route 55, or would it have been better to have another interchange on I-66? The Warren County School Board hired Greg Drescher as superintendent. This was his first superintendent job, paid like a seasoned superintendent, and yet Mr. Stanley appointed him to the EDA when he had 2 failing schools. What were you thinking, Doug? Don't you think his time would have been better spent helping the failing schools? I confronted Mr. Stanley about a property that was being sold to the EDA from someone named McDonald at a breakfast at the North Warren Fire Department. Mr. Stanley told Morris Bowen that I did not know what I was talking about, even though I had a document saying otherwise. This was Mr. Stanley covering up when he should have been asking questions, another failure on his part. I've said for many years that Jennifer McDonald was not qualified for her position with the EDA. She had no background to ever be hired, and to make matters worse, she was paid extremely well, one of the highest paid people in the county, and the board gave her a raise because she could not take criticism. The only success I can think of in the last 10 years, besides enriching several FODs, that's Friends of Doug's, was bringing in Popeye's fried chicken. We need a business not only to employ people, but to also help with tax revenue. Warren County had a great opportunity to bring natural gas under the new bridges, and as roads get repaired, run the pipeline. It might take 50 years to get across town, but it would help everyone. Do you really think a new business in the old Avtech site wants total electric? They want natural gas as the primary heat. This would have been a big selling point for the EDA. Manassas, Winchester, and Warrenton all have natural gas because that's the cheapest heat source. Each time I purchase a car, the lending institution always runs a credit check. Let me see a show of hands of who asked for a credit check on Mr. Tran. I guess that's none. Mr. Stanley, as part of your oversight, did you recommend a credit check? Why not? You give millions of dollars to someone because they tell a story. Shame on each of you. I recently read in a newspaper that the EDA hired a new administrator and gave him a 4-year contract at a huge salary. I read his bio and was not impressed. We do not even have a final audit, and you hire someone new. We should have shut the EDA down for 2 years until we have closure on this mess. For example, the head of the EDA sold a property for $10 because he did not read the whole document, and yet it's business as usual. If this is how we're doing business, then I want to sell the EDA some land. Where were you, Mr. Stanley, when we needed you? The new regional jail was built on prime real estate. It will never produce any new tax revenue. It should have been built on a B or C site. Where were you, Mr. Stanley and supervisors? Not doing your job, that's where. Mr. Stanley's idea is just to keep throwing taxpayer money at problems and helping his friends. It's great being an FOD. The EDA purchased the old Stokes building at extremely high price, and the repairs of the building are astronomical. Where's the oversight, Mr. Stanley and supervisors? The EDA should not be in the housing rental business. The EDA should be spending their time bringing in new business for tax revenue. Another huge mistake on Mr. Stanley's part. Mr. Stanley, why don't you tell everyone how much the EDA paid and an estimate on all the repairs and see if anyone thinks this is a good idea. The Front Royal Country Club and the Front Royal Airport run huge deficits each year. The airport must break even or sell it. Some of the country club, or at least try and make it break even. My suggestion would be to turn it into an executive course where all the holes are 100 yards or less, so that maybe more young people will get interested. Maybe add a putt-putt course, paintball, batting cages, gun range to increase revenue to at least break even. How long do you plan on having taxpayers subsidize these two for only a few people? Mr. Stanley awards the county insurance business to Mr. Supervisor Carter. I've been on business with federal government, state government, and county government, and each time they require 3 bids, no exception. Mr. Stanley says he could get only 2 bids. Mr. Stanley, have you ever called Clark County, Frederick County, Loudoun County, Shenandoah County to see who they use and ask for a 3rd bid? If Mr. Carter will not recuse himself from bidding, then he should get off the board and then bid on county business. Several weeks ago, Mr. Carter, you offered Mr. Marlowe your seat. Since you don't want to be on the board, I'd be happy to take your place. One must ask why Sheriff McGeefern seemed to always get increases in funding. Did Mr. Stanley ever question why the Sheriff's Department has so many deputies and cars compared to, say, Frederick County? Compare the total square miles for each county and the number of deputies and patrol cars. Is the number of deputies what the State Funding Board recommends for a county of our size and population? Mr. Stanley's oversight on the low water bridge, he pushed the VDOT design, and it doesn't even meet state standards for width. Is it just easier to throw money and help your friends? I understand that the county is buying a property for a new administration building. I'll give Mr. Stanley credit. He wrote himself an unreal employment contract, and if the newspapers need a photo op, he's your man. In closing, I'd like to up my challenge to Mr. Stanley, our Warren County Administrator. If I can ask him questions and he answers truthfully in a polygraph administered by the Virginia State Police, then I will donate in his name $2,000 for every question to the Humane Society, St. Luke Clinic, or CCAP. Thank you for the opportunity to address everyone. Have a good night.
Ms. Mouse, anybody else sign up to speak?
Leslie Matthews?
Leslie Matthews, 143 Matthews Lane. Good evening to you all. Now that the budget process is completed and approved, we all await receipt of our tax bills and can expect to pay our increases in June, our 6th consecutive year. And we have the majority of you to give thanks to for that. And when I was present at the April 9th and May 7th public hearings regarding our county's budget, I heard the Assistant County Administrator, Mr. Childress, and the Deputy Clerk of the Board, Ms. Mounts, while addressing you, use this county building, 220 North Commerce Avenue, as their address. With the major lack of transparency going on here in our county, I must ask, does this county building provide living quarters to certain county employees? I certainly hope this is not the case. And my point is, the protocol in addressing the board for all citizens needs to be upheld and equal. And although I don't need your approval, I have heard others announce their candidacy from this podium, and I wish to tell you that because Warren County is lacking leadership, I am stepping up to run for the South River District Supervisor seat. I do not do so for prestige, but rather to work for and with all the citizens to get our county back on track. And I have all intentions of occupying that seat in January of 2020. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Mouse, anybody else sign up?
No one else has signed up.
All right, is there anybody else that would like to speak? Anybody else would like to speak? Close the general public comment period. And do we have any motions regarding our closed meeting?
Vice Chairman. Yeah, I'd like to appoint, make a recommendation to appoint Henry Linger to the Front Royal Golf Club Advisory Committee with a term ending April 30th, 2023.
Second.
All right, it's a motion. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Before I say anything about any more interviews, does anybody have anything they want to say? Okay. We're going to have interviews for 4 more candidates to the EDA board. And we're going to have a cutoff date of anyone placing in their application will be May 31st, 2019. So let me repeat that. There'll be a cutoff of EDA board applications on May 31st, 2019, and we will be interviewing 4 more candidates that have put in their application. Any other public business? All right, we are adjourned.